The autumn leaves swirled across the NYU campus, painting the cobblestone paths in shades of crimson and gold. It was a crisp October morning in 2026, and the air buzzed with the usual chatter of students rushing to class. Inside room 305 of the Tisch building, a lecture hall packed with freshmen, tension simmered beneath the surface. Professor Harold Grayson, a wiry man with thinning gray hair and a reputation for sharp-tongued rants, stood at the podium, scribbling notes on a whiteboard about postmodern architecture. His class, Cultural Foundations of Design, was a required course, but Grayson taught it like he was doing everyone a favor by gracing them with his wisdom. In the third row sat Jamal Carter, a lanky 19-year-old from rural Alabama. His dad, Marcus Carter, was a third-generation farmer who'd scraped together every penny to send Jamal to NYU on a partial scholarship. Jamal's dark eyes sparkled with quiet determination. He was here to make something of himself, to prove that a black kid from the sticks could hold his own in the big city. Next to him sat Barron Trump, the youngest son of the former president, a towering figure at 6 feet 7 inches with a reserved demeanor that made him stand out even among the elite crowd. Barron, now 20, had enrolled at NYU to study business and design, keeping a low profile despite the inevitable whispers that followed him everywhere. The trouble started halfway through the lecture. Grayson had been droning on about Frank Lloyd Wright when Jamal raised his hand to ask a question. "Sir," he said, his southern drawl cutting through the room, "don't you think Wright's designs ignored the folks who actually worked the land? Like, farmers who kept America running?" Grayson froze, his marker squeaking to a halt. He turned, peering over his glasses at Jamal with a sneer that could curdle milk. "Farmers?" he said, his voice dripping with contempt. "You mean the unwashed masses who muck around in dirt? I suppose you'd know all about that, wouldn't you, boy?" The word boy landed like a slap, and a ripple of gasps spread through the room. Jamal's jaw tightened, but he held Grayson's gaze. Barron shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his pale blue eyes narrowing. He'd grown up hearing his father's brash rhetoric, but this felt different, crude, personal, and wrong. The other students exchanged awkward glances, some stifling nervous laughter, others staring at their desks. Grayson wasn't done. "Let me guess," he continued, pacing toward Jamal. "You're here on some diversity quota, right? A little charity case from the cotton fields." He chuckled, oblivious to the storm brewing. Jamal's hands clenched into fists. "My dad's a farmer, not a slave," he said, voice steady but edged with fire. "And I earned my spot here same as anyone." Grayson smirked. "Oh, I'm sure you did. Probably wrote your entrance essay in crayon." The room erupted in a mix of snickers and murmurs. Barron leaned forward, his usually stoic face hardening. He'd seen enough. "That's enough," he said, his deep voice cutting through the noise. "You don't get to talk to him like that." Grayson blinked, caught off guard. "Excuse me, Mr. Trump? This is my classroom. And this is America," Barron shot back. "Act like it." For a moment, silence gripped the room. Then a girl in the back pulled out her phone, hit record, and uploaded the exchange to X with the caption, "NYU prof goes full racist in front of Barron Trump. Holy crap." By lunchtime, the video had 2 million views. America was about to explode. By noon, the NYU campus was a powder keg. The video of Professor Grayson's tirade had gone viral, racking up millions of views on X and sparking a firestorm across social media. Hashtags like #NYURacistProf and #JusticeForJamal trended nationwide, while cable news networks scrambled to book pundits. Fox News called it a woke professor gone too far. CNN labeled it systemic racism in academia, and Twitter, X, was a battlefield of memes, hot takes, and outrage. One user posted, "Grayson's the kind of guy who'd call MLK a troublemaker." Another quipped, "Barron Trump standing up for a black kid? 2026 is wild." Jamal Carter sat in his dorm room, staring at his phone as notifications flooded in. He hadn't meant for this to blow up, he just wanted to get through class. Now his face was plastered across every screen in America, and strangers were digging into his life. A conservative blogger had already found a photo of him in overalls helping his dad bale hay, captioning it, "The farmer's son NYU doesn't deserve." Meanwhile, a progressive influencer praised him as a symbol of resilience. Jamal tossed his phone onto the bed, rubbing his temples. He wasn't a symbol, he was a kid with midterms next week. Across campus, Barron Trump ducked into a quiet corner of the library, his Secret Service detail hovering discreetly nearby. He'd seen the video too, cringing at how his voice boomed when he'd told Grayson off. Barron wasn't used to the spotlight. Unlike his siblings, he'd spent his life dodging it. But now X was ablaze with speculation. Is Barron the new Trump rebel? One post read. Another user joked, "Kid's got more spine than his dad ever did." Barron sighed, texting his mom, Melania. "Didn't mean to start a war." She replied, "You did the right thing. Be strong." Back in Alabama, Marcus Carter watched the chaos unfold on his ancient TV. A broad-shouldered man with calloused hands and a quiet faith. He'd raised Jamal to stand tall but keep his head down. Now his boy was a national headline, and Marcus felt a knot of pride and fear twist in his gut. He called Jamal, his voice gravelly over the line. "You okay, son?" Jamal hesitated. "Yeah, Dad. Just didn't expect this." Marcus chuckled softly. "World's a messy place. You keep being you, that's enough." Meanwhile, Professor Grayson holed up in his office, blinds drawn, ignoring the growing crowd of protesters outside. He'd issued a half-hearted apology on X. "I regret if my words were misinterpreted," but it only fueled the fire. Students chanted "Grayson must go," while others waved signs reading "No hate at NYU." The university administration, caught flat-footed, released a vague statement about investigating the incident. Satisfied no one. By evening, the story took a surreal turn. Donald Trump, Barron's father and never one to miss a spotlight, posted on Truth Social. "My son Barron stood up to a disgraceful professor at NYU. Liberals hate when we fight back. Proud of him." The post got 500,000 likes in an hour, but it also dragged Jamal into the MAGA orbit, whether he liked it or not. Liberal commentators fired back, accusing Trump of co-opting a black student's pain for political points. Jamal groaned, muttering to himself, "This ain't about me anymore." As night fell, a new X post emerged, this time from an anonymous account. It showed a grainy photo of Grayson at a 2015 rally, holding a sign with a Confederate flag. The caption read, "NYU's dirty secret." The internet detonated again. America wasn't just shocked, it was hooked. The revelation of Professor Grayson's Confederate flag photo hit America like a thunderclap. By midnight on October 17, 2026, X was a war zone of reactions. "NYU's got a Klansman teaching kids," one user raged, while another countered, "It's just a flag. People overreacting as usual." The image, though blurry, was undeniable. Grayson, younger and smirking, stood amid a crowd at a rally in Charleston, South Carolina, hoisting the stars and bars. Diggers on X unearthed the date, June 2015, days after the horrific church shooting that left 9 black parishioners dead. The optics were a disaster. Jamal woke up to the news blaring from his roommate's laptop. "Man, this dude's a ghost now," his roommate, a wiry kid named Diego, said, scrolling through X. Jamal rubbed his eyes, still groggy. "I just wanted to ask about architecture," he muttered. But the story had its own life now, and he was strapped in for the ride. Texts from his dad piled up. "Stay safe, son. Call me." Jamal dialed home, and Marcus's voice came through, steady as ever. "You see this mess about Grayson?" Jamal nodded, forgetting his dad couldn't see. "Yeah, it's bad." Marcus paused. "Bad don't surprise me. Men like him carry old poison." At NYU, the administration scrambled into damage control mode. President Linda Mills called an emergency meeting with the board, while Grayson was placed on administrative leave pending a full investigation. Students weren't waiting for bureaucracy, though. A coalition of Black and Latino undergrads organized a sit-in outside Grayson's office, blocking the hallway with signs, "No racists on payroll," and fire Grayson now. By noon, the crowd swelled to 300, spilling onto Washington Square Park. News helicopters buzzed overhead, beaming the scene live to millions. Barron Trump watched from a distance, leaning against a tree with his Secret Service agents nearby. He hadn't spoken to Jamal since the incident, didn't know what to say, but he felt the weight of it all. His phone buzzed with a text from his older brother. Don Jr., you're a hero, kid. Libs are melting down. Barron rolled his eyes. He didn't feel heroic, he felt exposed. A girl with a megaphone spotted him and shouted, "Hey, Trump, you with us or what?" Barron froze, then gave a small nod before slipping away. He wasn't ready for this. Grayson, meanwhile, barricaded himself in his Upper West Side apartment, blinds shut tight. Reporters camped outside, shouting questions he ignored. His phone lit up with hate mail and death threats, but also a few messages of support from fringe groups he'd rather not name. He poured a scotch, hands trembling, and muttered, "They're ruining me over nothing." But the photo wasn't nothing. It was a skeleton clawing out of his closet, and America was ready to bury him with it. That afternoon, a bombshell dropped. A former student, now a journalist at the New York Post, published an exposé. "I took Grayson's class in 2018. He called me a welfare queen." The piece detailed years of Grayson's alleged microaggressions, mocking accents, dismissing minority students, favoring the wealthy and white. X erupted again with hashtag #GraysonExposed trending. Jamal read the article on his phone, stomach churning. This wasn't just about him anymore, it was a reckoning. By dusk, a rumor swirled. Jamal's dad was driving up from Alabama to confront Grayson himself. No one knew if it was true, but the idea of a black farmer facing down a racist prof in the heart of New York City, that was the kind of drama America couldn't resist. The sun dipped low over Manhattan on October 20th, 2026, casting long shadows across Washington Square Park. Marcus Carter's takedown of Professor Grayson had electrified America, but the shockwaves were just beginning. By nightfall, the video of his speech, "You don't get to call my boy boy," had 25 million views across platforms. X dubbed him the Alabama Lion, and talking heads on every network dissected his words. MSNBC called it a masterclass in dignity, while Fox spun it as a father's fight against cancel culture. Marcus didn't care, he just wanted to get Jamal home for a hot meal. Jamal, though, felt the weight of it all. Back in his dorm, he sat with his dad, eating takeout pizza as notifications pinged relentlessly. "I didn't ask for this, Dad," he said, picking at a slice. Marcus nodded, his eyes soft. "I know, son. Sometimes the fight picks you." The next morning, they planned to head back to Alabama, but fate had other ideas. A group of NYU students, black, white, Latino, Asian, showed up with a petition. Rename Tisch Room 305 the Carter Room. It had 5,000 signatures in 12 hours. Jamal blinked, stunned. "That's crazy." Marcus grinned. "That's you making a mark." Barron Trump watched the saga unfold from his off-campus apartment, scrolling X in silence. His small act, calling out Grayson, had snowballed into a national moment, and he wasn't sure how to feel. His dad called, voice booming through the phone. "You're a Trump, Barron. You showed M." But Barron didn't want a parade, he wanted normalcy. Still, when a reporter asked if he'd back the Carter Room idea, he said, "Yeah, why not? Jamal deserves it." The clip aired on CNN, and suddenly Barron was a reluctant hero. The real shock came 2 days later. A whistleblower from NYU's faculty leaked emails showing Grayson wasn't an outlier. Several professors had histories of similar behavior, swept under the rug by a skittish administration. The New York Times ran the story, "NYU's Culture of Silence. Racism Beyond Grayson." Protests reignited, demands for audits grew, and universities nationwide faced scrutiny. X lit up with hashtag Clean the Campus, and students from UCLA to Harvard staged walkouts. Jamal's humiliation had cracked open a fault line in American higher education. Grayson, meanwhile, vanished. Rumors swirled he'd fled to a cabin in upstate New York, hounded by threats and shame. His career was ash, his name a punchline. Some pitied him. "He's just an old fool," one ex-user wrote, but most didn't. The Confederate flag photo sealed his fate. A relic of a past America was still wrestling to bury.